the public voting and putting their hope on a better future. Dr. Ayed is a Kuwaiti researcher and famous political analyst. Where the, what do you see from this National Assembly? First, we welcome you to the show, and it's our pleasure to have you here in the studio. Before we ask you the question, we would like to introduce. We would like you to introduce yourself to the viewers, just to have some background about you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. My name is Dr. Ayed Manna. I am actually a member of staff in the Public Authority of Education, Applied Education. Also, I am a writer and journalist in Al Watan newspaper, which is no longer exists at the moment. Definitely a political commentator for a very long time, since the early 90s. And before that also I was a writer and still actually searching for all the affairs of the Gulf and the Middle East. That's the most important of it. Definitely this election is a very good sign at the moment. I noticed that from early morning today, most of the electorate, they actually went and stood waiting for the doors to be opened, and they all actually queued respectfully. The actually Ministry of Interior was present. All the health procedures had been taken, although there is no for distance, but it is to some extent very acceptable. I think the turnout will be no less than 50 or probably 60 to some extent in general. Some of the constituents, like the 4th and the 5th, you know that it is mostly tribal, and all these actually come to shoulder their own candidate to take more seats in this parliament. This parliament, or the parliament actually in Kuwait, it is two roles. One is legislative, the another is supervision and control, following the government actions. The government, according to Article 98 of the Constitution, to be formed after this election, a new government, and the government actually must present its program to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly, the new one, to discuss the program and approve it, and afterward we'll start a new era. As you know also, the ministers who are not elected, or some of them, or most of them actually, are members of the parliament by their own duties or responsibilities as minister. The government also must contain at least one of its members from the National Assembly. This is in general actually the case. I think now there are a lot of issues raised during this electoral campaign. So many of them to be tackled during the next time, especially the diversifying of the source of income, the security, the housing for the couples, Kuwaitis, the manpower, especially the non-Kuwaiti manpower, and the population percentage, which is 70 for the non-Kuwaitis 30 for the Kuwaitis, and that must be actually changed to at least to be 50-50. The corruption which had existing during the last few months, I think it will be tackled, and I think His Highness the Amir Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah give his support for the government to take very hard action against those who corrupt and the corruption of these people, and nobody will be above the law, as His Highness the Amir said.
Okay. Dr. Aid, thank you so much for this great explanation. Now, in this election, we saw a lot of new faces. Do you think that there will be any changes in the outcome of this elections with all these new candidates?
Well, I think mostly the young candidate might actually have the lead in this election because these actually present them as reformists and developers. You know that Kuwait, as I said, need to diversify. It is a source of income. Kuwait, as late Sheikh Sabah, promised to turn it to a center for commercial and economic center in this area. Also, all the development aspects had been discussed before and need to be applied during this National Assembly. We hope that those who actually qualified by their degrees and by their experience to get their seats in this parliament, and that will help both the government and the National Assembly to perform a very good job for the sake of the country.
Dr. Ayed, you talked briefly about the turnout. Now, do you think that this year's elections turnout will be significantly higher than our last round of election, and why?
Why? Actually, I start with why because of the challenge. People definitely challenge this fear of corona, and you know that also it is raining today, and the people actually stood fast to express their opinion and to vote for their candidate, and that's a very important aspect for the Kuwaiti people. I think the turnout, I hope it will not less than 50%, probably for some of the constituents, like the first one, it's already exceed 70% of the electorate. I think the constituent 4 and 5 will be within this range. It will be one of the most important election. As you know, the last one, 2016, the turnout was 69, and the one before it, I think 58. The another four before that was 51, and I think this will be more than the one before, especially with this kind of empathic. The people prove that they're willing to have a say for their next parliament and to elect the people who think that they are the best to represent them in this National Assembly.
Dr. Ayed, since we are on this topic, do you think this election outcome will unite the Kuwaiti political discourse?
Well, I hope so, actually. As you know, that there is no big differences between the Kuwaitis. I think the Kuwaiti already unified around His Highness the Amir and the Crown Prince. I think also the national security is the most important. The national reconciliation might be on the agenda for the next parliament, and I think it is also for the political system. It will be, as you know, it happened before, some unrest, and actually the courts took actions, and the judiciary, as you know, that separated from the executive and the legislative powers, according to Article 50 of the Constitution. The system of government based on separation of powers. But I think His Highness the Amir has the power to relieve some of those actually who've been convicted with some of the crimes they had already committed, and especially the crimes with the political aspect or with the media and so.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ayed, for all these information.